a way to divide resources that isn't so cruel? In 1918, Bertrand Russell argued that a certain small income, sufficient for necessaries, should be secured to all, whether they work or not, and that a larger income should be given to those who are willing to engage in some work which the community recognizes as useful. On this basis, we may build further. Russell's proposal is very much what we know today as Universal Basic Income, UBI. That is, a periodic cash payment unconditionally delivered to all on an individual basis, without means test or work requirement. Russell adds that the income is large enough to live on, and that the UBI plan will be structured so that people who do things like paid labor end up with more than people who live solely off UBI. Both of these stipulations are important, but not always included in the definition of UBI. Ahead, I define UBI in more detail and slightly differently, but Russell's description gives you a very good idea of what it is. Under a UBI system, we may divide the resources of the earth unequally, but the people who get large shares of resources and the external assets we make out of those resources compensate the people who have gotten little or no share. Compensation has to be unconditional. Otherwise, it's not compensation at all. It's a wage. As Russell mentions, UBI is not all there is to social justice, but it removes one cruel feature built into our economic system. A UBI economy does not use fear as a motivator. A UBI of sufficient size removes the fear of poverty, homelessness, and economic destitution that is built into our system and into most familiar alternative systems. With a UBI of sufficient size, you will always know that no matter what, you will have enough income to cover your basic needs, including housing, food, clothing, and so on. In many ways, UBI is a mild reform. On its own, without other major changes to the existing system, UBI simply creates a market economy where income doesn't start at zero. It establishes a gapless safety net while leaving the many opportunities of the market in place. But this mild reform has far-reaching effects. A UBI large enough to live on necessarily creates a voluntary participation economy. If we stop using fear as a work incentive, we give everyone the power to say no to paid labor, self-employment, or any other active form of economic participation if they so choose. This aspect makes any economy with a UBI very different from the existing economic system and from most well-known alternatives. Unfettered capitalism puts most people in the position in which they have no other choice but to sell their labor to the people who own physical capital. Karl Marx's vague solution, from each according to their ability to each according to their needs, seems to imply a fixed work requirement. The nominally Marxist state of the Soviet Union interpreted it that way when its leaders wrote a work requirement into its first constitution. Welfare capitalism and social democracy sometimes have generous benefits, but those benefits are usually conditional on economic participation or on proof that beneficiaries are unable to participate. That is, all of these very diverse economic systems include mandatory participation requirements. I start with this issue because it calls to attention the question behind the question of whether to introduce UBI. Should we have a mandatory participation economy or a voluntary participation economy? Should everyone get an income, even people who could take jobs but choose not to?